Picture this: a huge metal door slides open, and the warehouse-sized garage goes silent. Under bright lights, rows of old cars shine, their paint coming off like memories of better times. On dusty shelves, wooden boxes are spread out like time capsules. There are vague smells of motor oil, cedar box liners, and upholstery that is decades old in the air. It's almost possible to hear Carson's stage laughs and cheers mixing with the soft hum of engines that he used to love. This is Johnny Carson's secret sanctuary, which has been locked up since the night he died. Today, a group of historians, archivists, and TV makers walk through the door to find out what's behind those garage doors. What they find inside will blow your mind and change everything you thought you knew about the late-night king. At first sight, the collection looks like a typical man cave. There are old Cadillac Eldorados, a row of Corvettes, and a spotless Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow in the back. But there is a deeper story behind this shrine to cars. It's written in yellowed letters, personal items, and memories that aren't spoken. Claire Martinez, the lead archivist, walks forward with her badge shining and a TV crew following close behind. Her voice shakes just enough to build the tension. "We think Johnny stored things here since the 1970s, private memories that never saw the light of day." The crew lifts the tarp off of a well-known '57 Cadillac, revealing flawless cherry red paint and a handwritten note on the steering wheel that reads, "Picked up from LA. Factory, JC June 9, '57. This makes everyone get goosebumps. This isn't just a car, it's a time machine that takes you back to Carson's wonderful life. As the team spreads out, dirty shelves call to them. Claire pulls out an old wooden box that says "Tonight Show Mementos." Inside are stacks of cue cards that have Carson's typically tight handwriting on them. Each card has the name of a guest and a few notes about things that happened that were said behind closed doors or that were never shown on TV. "Invite Cobain," reads one card. "Not at all. Too raw," said someone else. "Ask E.T. About the cameo by Spielberg, JC loves it." The team is shocked. These aren't just production notes, they're rare looks into Carson's thoughts and inspirations, showing the unfiltered part of his creative process that millions of people have never seen. Further down the line, cardboard boxes hold scripts from Carson's best movies. The scripts have notes written on the edges, such as "Laugh here and cut," "Too long, great line, use in monologue." A broken-down typewriter lies next to a stack of his personal diaries. The leather covers of the journals are cracked from use. Claire carefully opens the first book and finds scattered notes inside. There is a late-night thought about fame, thanks to his writing team, and an honest admission of being lonely in hotel rooms while on tour. She gasps for air. When Johnny Carson isn't in the spotlight, he's a vulnerable artist who has to deal with the stress of always having to act. Then there are the hidden awards. Claire finds dozens of awards from charities hidden in an unmarked box. These include the Silver Rose of Hope, a career achievement plaque from the American Cancer Society, and medals from children's hospitals that he helped without telling anyone. Each one has his unique name on it, but almost none of them have ever been shown to the public. The fact that Carson's Johnson & Johnson philanthropic medal is still wrapped in tissue makes it look like he has been quietly funding research projects, grants, and awards for years. All of a sudden, the flashy image of a TV host changes into that of a humble savior, and his kindness is only shown to those who need it the most. The big shocker comes when the team finds a locked steel vault bolted to the concrete wall in a sneaky way. The archivists look at each other. Claire's finger is on the clock. She says in a soft voice, "I had no idea this existed." They set up cameras and lights. More and more stress builds with each turn of the combination written in Carson's handwriting. There are hundreds of hours of outtakes, candid backstage footage, and never-before-seen interviews where Carson drops his polished host image. The crew gasps when the vault door swings open and the films spill out into view. There is video of rock stars jamming in his dressing room, astronauts talking quietly about landing on the moon, and Carson himself, uncensored, struggling with joke ideas during late-night rants by himself. It's a treasure trove for fans and scholars alike. Claire says it best: "This isn't just a garage, it's a vault of cultural history." Everything in the vault, from the family photos hidden in the glove box to the sealed vault of raw film, tells a story about Carson's life outside of The Tonight Show. Tonight, we finally reveal the man behind the mic after decades of secret. Stay with us as we list these treasures, figure out what they mean, and learn how Johnny Carson's secret garage will change the way we think about TV history forever. As the team goes deeper into the huge garage, flashlights cut through the darkness to show rows of dusty shelves and unlabeled boxes. Claire walks up to an old glass display case that is attached to a support shaft with bolts. The lock is rusted but still works. Taking off the dirt, she sees a copper plate that says Personal Archives. She carefully prisks the catch loose and swings the door open. Over 100 leather-bound books are stored inside. The numbers on each one range from the early 1960s to the 1990s. As she opens the first binder, her heart beats faster. It contains handwritten notes, sketches, and photos that show Carson's private road trips and family holidays. In one picture, Johnny is young and laughing while holding a map that says Highway 66 Adventure. On another page, he has carefully marked pressed wildflowers from national parks that show the exact moment he picked them. Millions of people don't know this side of Carson, but this treasure trove shows a man who loved simple pleasures and found comfort behind the wheel more than in front of the camera. The crew finds a broken-down wooden box outside the display case that is locked with an old padlock. Some of the producers bring a small grinder to help them open it. Inside, there are stacks of unmailed letters to Carson from other comics, loyal fans, and even presidents. The lid creaks. In one letter, Frank Sinatra thanks Johnny for helping him through a tough tour, and in another, a young writer asks for help getting into TV. These touching letters had never been shown on TV or kept in a file. Each envelope has a date stamp and a return address that matches, which shows that Carson wants to answer each fan's letter directly. Though he had hidden these letters, he never forgot how warm and sincere they were. A small-town musician writes, "Your kindness saved my dream of performing," and a Broadway hopeful says, "You taught me more about life than any professor." As Claire reads out loud from the letters, the crew is rapt. It becomes shockingly clear that Johnny Carson's kindness went far beyond giving money to charities. He also helped budding artists by writing them notes of support. A rolling cart nearby that is full of old radios catches the team's attention. Under the dust, old soundboards, microphones, and reel-to-reel tape players shine. Claire finds a folded plan that shows Carson built a simple home recording studio to record acts and interviews without TV cameras being there. She turns on one of the tape decks by flicking a switch, and the hissing static turns into faint bits of talk. It takes skill for her to thread a reel and press play. The garage is filled with the ghostly sound of late-night chatter. Carson is talking to Ella Fitzgerald off-air in a casual setting, and her laughter is soft and real. This private audio recording shows how much he loves music and spontaneous conversation, without any editing or filtering. The crew looks at each other as they realize what it means, hours of raw video showing Carson's unbreakable bond with legends who rarely showed this side of themselves in public. These reels are an untapped archive that could give fans and historians new information about the past of late-night shows. Claire finds a door hidden behind a stack of wooden pallets deeper in the basement. A nearby locksmith comes over and gently opens the door. Beyond the opening is a small workshop with cabinets with glass doors that line the walls. Inside are rows of carefully arranged watch parts, such as small gears, springs, and balance wheels. A plaque on top says Hobbyist's Corner. Carson had clearly played around with timekeeping by fixing and rebuilding valuable watches. At the moment, the faces of several beautiful Swiss watches or often their innards can be seen on a workbench. A notebook wrapped in leather has drawings and notes on how to calibrate a chronometer, dates of service, and personal thoughts on how time goes by. In a March 1975 note, it says, "Time goes by quickly when you laugh." As the host said, "Remember to slow down." It was a touching way to remember the person who set the pace for millions of nights while secretly trying to enjoy each moment more. As the cameras flash, the team sees a big steel cabinet labeled Special Projects. When they open it, they find an amazing collection of rare items, including a brand new Mercury astronaut's glove, a piece of moon rock in a glass case, and gifts from NASA officials. Carson was interested in space travel, and he talked about it a lot on his show. He also made friends with astronauts and scientists and got political pins from the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo missions. He secretly went to Cape Canaveral and set up private tours of launch sites for close friends, which are written down in a binder. These space mementos show that he was an important cultural link between TV viewers and the cutting edge of science that wasn't widely known. Claire calls the group together by a single exposed bulb swinging overhead to end the second part of their tour. The family scrapbooks, heartfelt letters, private audio records, horology experiments, and space artifacts that have been found give us a better picture of Johnny Carson's private life. He is no longer just a TV star, he is also a passionate collector, a caring reporter, a hobby engineer, and a fierce friend to pioneers. The garage used to be a quiet place where things were left behind, but now it's full of untold stories just ready to be told. Claire's voice cracks with excitement as she says, "We've barely scratched the surface." And indeed, the next section promises to reveal the final room, where Carson's most guarded secret lies, an entrance to his personal archives that will change the course of his legacy forever. A narrow hallway hidden behind the workshop led the crew to a reinforced steel door with a simple plaque reading "Archives." Claire's hand shook as she dialed the combination written in Carson's handwriting on a faded index card. With a loud click, the door came loose and swung in, letting soft amber light into the room. It smelled like old paper and smooth wood. It was a climate-controlled archive meant to keep history safe. The walls were lined with rows of mahogany bookcases. The shelves of these bookcases were sagging from the weight of the carefully arranged binders, notebooks, and boxed collections. On the huge oak table in the middle of the room were stacks of lined notebooks, loose papers, and old-fashioned fountain pens. Claire stepped forward, her breath caught between awe and excitement. The first binder she opened was called Show Treatments, 1962 to 1972. Inside were typed paragraphs that described Carson's conceptual experiments for themes, guest duos, and monologue arcs. There were also notes in his precise cursive writing in the margins, such as "Needs more bite here," "Skip this bit if time is tight," and "Strong reaction from West Coast audience, keep." These treatment documents showed that Carson didn't just read jokes, he carefully planned each show's emotional journey, anticipating how the audience would react to each part. One treatment talked about a tribute to NASA Family's episode and included contact names for scheduling the children of astronaut guests. This segment never aired, but historians have thought about it for a long time. Carson's greater commitment to making TV moments that are more than just entertainment was confirmed by the news. There was a stack of spiral-bound notebooks next to the treatments that were labeled monologue drafts. Claire opened one of them and saw early versions of Carson's famous starting lines. Some of them were very different from the polished jokes that aired. One draft had a scrawl about a political issue that was later erased with white correction fluid. This shows how Carson edited the work and how aware he was of network standards. In another notebook, there were several late-night meditations and personal comments written in the wee hours of the morning. These included thoughts on fame, thanks to writers, and reminders to call home more often. These pages gave us a look into Carson's private thoughts as he walked the line between public praise and personal weakness. Under the table, strong wooden crates had typed signs that said research files, legal clearances, and guest correspondence. Claire opened the top crate and found folders for each Tonight Show guest. Fiona Apple's folder had email copies from her publicist, Carson's handwritten notes on song choice, and a thank you letter from Fiona herself that had never been saved before. The Muhammad Ali file, which was close by, had letters that Carson and Ali's manager had sent each other planning surprises for Ali's visit, like inviting boxing coaches from the area to the studio for a charity segment. These guest files proved Carson's work behind the scenes to plan meaningful tributes that mixed the glitz and glamour of celebrities with real human connection. On one side, Carson's personal reading materials were kept in a closet with a glass front. Hemingway and Fitzgerald classics were next to Mark Twain and Oscar Wilde bound books, and he had post-it notes on each one to mark parts he liked. Carson had a note in his copy of Twain's Adventures that said, "Perfect timing, humor laced with pathos, learn to balance." He also had notes and underlines in his Wilde books that talked about how to write one-liners. Carson's love for written language was made clear by these literary gems, which also helped his jokes seem natural and unplanned. A heavy-duty safe stood against the back wall at the far end of the room. This vault was built into the archive's main beam, unlike the one that was hidden in the garage. On top of it was a leather-bound notebook with entries from 1965 to 1978 and the title Personal Reflections. Claire carefully opened the diary to the first entry, which said, "Tonight was my 100th show. The praise makes me feel good, but I wonder if they see the real me behind the mask." The next pages wrote about his highs and lows, like how happy he was to come up with a new joke and how lonely he felt between tapings and how letters from family helped him feel better when he doubted himself. Carson painted an honest picture of a man who was thankful for his success but longing for easy, everyday moments. Claire put in another code when she went back to the safe. Film canisters that had not been signed were inside, wrapped in acid-free sleeves. Producers looked at each other with excitement. These weren't show outtakes, but raw video of Carson's charitable work, like visiting kids in hospitals and recording personal messages for soldiers who were hospitalized. Claire took out a box that said Volunteer Week 1974. Soon, the lab team would digitize these reels, which would show Carson's real kindness in ways that weren't caught on camera but are here for history. As the crew wrote down each find, treatment binders, monologue drafts, guest files, literary archives, heartfelt diaries, and secret film reels, they felt a deep bond with each other. This secret collection was more than just a treasure chest, it was Carson's soul laid bare, carefully organized behind the walls of the garage. The private refuge, which had once been his, was now a memorial to a man who was as funny as he was smart and caring. Claire closed the leather-bound notebook and told her team, "We found the blueprint for his public persona and the private thoughts that fuel it." Carson's real art was shown on The Tonight Show, which was never just a set. She paused and looked around the storage room that had kept these personal items for decades. Now it's our turn to share these with the world in a way that is polite, responsible, and shows they deserve it. With every binder, script, and film reel safely packed for transport, Johnny Carson's story went beyond the TV screen and became a live story of creativity, empathy, and unspoken courage. In the last part, we'll talk about how these items will be kept safe and shown to the public, as well as how Carson's hidden garage archive could change his reputation for future generations. First, the experts in preservation carefully entered each item into the archive management system, giving each one a unique number and taking very clear pictures of the objects. Climate-controlled rooms kept the right temperature and humidity, which kept metal, paper, leather, and film from breaking down. Experts looked at conservation logbooks and made personalized treatment plans. For example, gentle cleaning agents were used on leather-bound notebooks, corrosion inhibitors were used to keep metal safe stable, and antique watch parts were kept safe while being viewed under a microscope. While the physical conservation was going on, a group of television historians looked through the binders, reels, and memorabilia and compared what they found to records already kept at network offices. They found holes in the public record and wrote academic reports about how the newly found documents could help us understand how broadcasting worked in the middle of the 20th century. Together with the help of lawyers, they got the permissions they needed from the Carson estate to make sure that intellectual property rights and private concerns for personal letters were respected. At the same time, digital archivists started the huge job of digitizing film reels and paper records. Carson's handwritten monologues were scanned at a high resolution, and specialized telecine equipment turned analog video into digital formats at 4K resolution. Researchers and content curators could look by date, guest name, or production note thanks to metadata tags that linked each digital file to its physical counterpart. Soon, this digital library would hold terabytes of data that could be accessed through safe, password-protected systems. The project's curators worked with a big television museum to make plans for a permanent exhibit that would show all of Johnny Carson's many contributions to the world of television. Along with his annotated literature collections, displays would include a cherry red 1957 Cadillac, interactive kiosks showing selected outtakes, and augmented reality experiences letting people step into his climate-controlled archive room. The story of the show would lead people through thematic areas, such as the creative process, private reflections, charitable work, and testing new technologies. The Carson estate also agreed to a traveling display that will be shown in museums across the country. Modular display units were made to fit a variety of gallery areas, keeping artifacts safe and keeping the story going. At each location, there would be events for the community, panel talks with experts on TV, and live showings of restored footage. Along with the exhibit, branded educational packets for schools would teach students about media literacy, historical study, and conservation science. These packets were based on Carson's personal archive. At the same time, documentary filmmakers and producers worked together to make a feature-length film about the garage find. Archival video, interviews with experts, and behind-the-scenes restoration segments would all be used to tell a story about Carson's hidden sides. The production schedule included on-camera interviews with family members, historians, and past writers for The Tonight Show talking about stories that aren't often remembered. Plans also called for festival submissions to help Carson's reputation in academic and artistic circles. Along with these efforts, an interactive website went live that lets you take virtual tours of the archive room and see some items from all angles. People who went online could look through Carson's scripts with notes added on them, listen to his uncut audio clips, and read transcriptions of his personal diaries. Scholars had early access through a password-protected study portal, and fans could subscribe to get behind-the-scenes content every month. The website had community forums and digital annotations that let fans share their thoughts and work together to find secret stories. Schools jumped at the chance to use these texts as primary sources in history, media studies, and journalism classes. Carson's file folders were used as part of his classes, and students were given group projects to look at changes to the script or think about how he dealt with sensitive interview topics. Soon, conferences about TV history would have groups talking about Carson's methods and the moral issues that come up with accessing old recordings. In addition to the found footage, grants were given for more oral history projects. Every step of the public distribution process was based on ethical concerns. The Carson Estate and Curatorial Board wrote a code of entry that was both open and respectful of people's privacy. Personal diary snippets were carefully chosen to avoid being too shocking by putting them in the context of larger human themes like being creative and vulnerable. Privacy clauses kept the names of people who hadn't given clear permission from being used, making sure that the show respected both personal privacy and historical importance. Fans reacted with a lot of excitement, starting online groups that are all about the history of late-night TV. Fans took to social media to share sneak peeks of newly released video, user-generated transcripts, and interesting facts from the past. Collectors put together digital gatherings just for Carson's memorabilia and held virtual watch parties to celebrate rare behind-the-scenes moment reels. This participation from the community proved that the project's engaging parts worked, which encourages more community-driven curation efforts. A mix of museum sponsorships, public grants, and generous donations provided the money for continued study and conservation. A major culture foundation set up a special endowment to protect the artifacts and digital archives so that future generations could use and enjoy them. With these funds, there would be regular re-exhibitions, improvements to technology, and fellowships for collaborative study in the field of television studies. As this part of the project came to an end, the preservation team did one last inventory check to make sure that every binder, reel, and motor car had been recorded and kept safe. Condition reports and treatment logs were made by specialists and kept with the artifacts, both physically and online. These detailed records would show how far modern conservation has come and set standards for future projects that protect media history. Along with exhibitions and internet platforms, curators also wanted to hold educational workshops where the next generation of conservators could learn how to work with archives. The students would learn how to use temperature mapping, digital restoration methods, and moral guidelines for dealing with private documents. By teaching new pros, the project made sure that Carson's hidden legacy would continue to be studied and used in popular culture for a long time to come. A major radio network gave the go-ahead for a companion podcast series. Each week's episodes go into detail about specific finds, such as a single monologue draft or insider information found in letters. Claire Martinez would host the series, which would talk to conservators, historians, and even former network executives. The interviews would bring Carson's uncensored story to audio audiences and increase his reach across multiple media. The doors to the public unveiling opened with a flurry of camera flashes and hushed anticipation. Under soft spotlights, rows of carefully kept objects lined the gallery walls. People leaned in close to read Carson's personal notes in the margins of drafts of monologues. They were amazed by the Mercury astronaut's glove that was on display in a glass case, and they laughed at the silly pressed wildflowers that were under the Highway 66 adventure photos. There was silence as Claire Martinez took the stage and said, "What you see here is more than memorabilia. This is a personal picture of a man who shaped our nights, kept in the place he used to call his sanctuary." On the first weekend, there were long lines outside the TV museum. There were a lot of tags and shares on social media about Carson's garage and archive. Fans posted selfies with the '57 Cadillac Eldorado and pictures of the diary pages that said, "I wonder if they see the real me behind the mask." Local news anchors walked around the display cabinets and showed live segments that mixed clips from digitalized backstage footage with reactions from fans who had grown up watching The Tonight Show. Many people said that seeing Johnny's notes, which were written in tight cursive, was like hearing the words of an old friend. At the same time, an interactive website went live with a virtual tour that took users through the dimly lit garage and into the climate-controlled storage room. Digital guests could look at high-resolution scans of cue cards that had been used in battle and listen to uncut recordings of Ella Fitzgerald laughing that Carson had made in his home studio. Historians could use a built-in timeline to see how talk shows changed from 1962 to 1992, complete with notes on canceled parts and how guests were chosen behind the scenes. As fan groups went through the vault's contents and debated whether Carson's unpublished tribute to NASA Families segment could be reconstructed for modern TV, comment threads were full of passionate debates. The tools were quickly added to the curriculums of schools. Journalism teachers told their students to look at editorial choices and network standards and compare original monologue treatments with broadcast scripts. Media studies classes taught us about Carson's editing process, like how he carefully took out a joke that was too political or how he changed the tone of an article in the middle of the week. History departments used the artifacts from Mercury and Apollo missions as starting points for cultural diplomacy during the Cold War. This showed how TV stars helped build national identity during the space race. Carson's personal reflections diary was mentioned in research papers as an important first-hand account of celebrity psychology that looked at how public persona and private vulnerability interact. In addition to the gallery, the moving show went to museums in small towns and big cities across the country. In Chicago, it went with an interactive nighttime TV then and now display. In Atlanta, it teamed up with a local university to hold symposiums on archival ethics and intellectual property. And in Los Angeles, it ran at the same time as a film festival showing restored Tonight Show clips. Family lessons at the museum were based on Carson's horology station. As kids put together simple clock mechanisms, teachers taught them about gears and springs. Because the show was made up of separate modules, each community could see Carson's world through the lens of their own culture. This helped people in those communities connect with a national icon. People in the Carson family watched the project go from start to finish with quiet pleasure. Melissa Carson, Johnny's daughter, told personal stories at press events. She talked about how her father would surprise kids in the neighborhood with signed cue cards and how he would fiddle with watch movements late at night. She thought the archive showed how kind he was because it had letters from friends and aspiring artists that showed how kind he really was. Melissa called the vault a time capsule of love in private talks that were part of the full-length documentary. It was there that her father kept memories that were never caught on camera. People who work in the field also took note. Carson's finds in the archives were used as ideas by current late-night hosts for new segments that combine old clips with commentary from today. The writers of popular talk shows used Carson's thematic approaches by planning stories around important social issues and cultural events. TV networks looked into licensing restored outtakes for anniversary shows, bringing old moments that were kept secret to life again. The ripple effect could be heard in writers' rooms and production meetings, telling people who make art that realness and empathy are still what make entertainment memorable. The display most importantly showed Carson's impact on people's lives. Fans said they felt closer than ever to a speaker they had only seen on TV. Scholars praised the archive as an important addition to media history that opened up new conversations about how to handle personal papers and the morality of revealing things after the fact. People left scribbled notes in quiet reflection areas set up between the exhibits about how Carson's honest flaws reminded them of their own losses, goals, and desires for real connection. As the first year of the Garage project came to a close, Claire Martinez spoke to a group of archivists, historians, and Carson fans to start a new endowment that will help keep late-night TV history alive. Fellowships, digital archiving projects, and traveling workshops on conservation methods would all be paid for by the endowment. This would make sure that other hidden collections get the same care. Claire ended her speech with a quote from Carson's own diary: "Time goes by quickly when you laugh, remember to slow down." She then looked at the people in the room and said, "Through this archive, we all learn to slow down, to listen to the whispers left in paper and film, and to appreciate the life behind the legend." As the garage doors close softly behind the last box, memories of the opening weekend fade away. Claire Martinez and her team take a moment to breathe and think about how a dusty car barn turned into a symbol for preserving culture. People go home with pictures of the Mercury astronaut's glove and pocket diaries of Carson's midnight thoughts. Each item is a reminder that even the most famous people are still people at heart. I never knew his heart until I saw his handwriting, and this archive taught me to treasure small moments more, are just two of the handwritten notes that fill the museum's guestbook. These stories spread through social media shares and word of mouth, starting a conversation about legacy, memory, and the power of hidden histories. A few months later, moving exhibition panels show Carson's annotated monologue drafts at a university campus. Students gather around display cases that hold the drafts. Professors use these materials in seminar talks to get students to think about how the media affects how people think about things and how personal archives can change or add to that story. There is a glass wall in the classroom, and one of the students talks about Carson's guest letters, saying that his handwritten answers show an empathy that is hard to find today. Researchers are working on projects, writing theses, and making artistic adaptations based on what they've learned from Johnny Carson's private life becoming public. At the same time, documentary video edited from the Garage Vault gets great reviews at its premiere at a film festival. People gasp at never-before-seen scenes, like Carson offering his own watch to be fixed in a workshop lit by bare bulbs, his laughter mixed with Ella Fitzgerald's in a secret sound booth, and his handwritten diary entry about being lonely. Critics love how the film brings a famous person we thought was invincible to life, especially the close-up camera angles that show the soft side of Carson's tough guy humor. The movie is an example of how records can change how people remember things, making people think about the lines between their public and private lives. As more money is given to the Preservation Endowment, Claire is in charge of a new fellowship program that lets aspiring archivists learn in the garage where the first finds were made. Fellows learn how to deal with old film reels, keep an eye on the temperature and humidity in a climate room, and scan fragile paper without changing its texture. They learn from their teachers how to make moral choices, like how to balance academic research with respecting people's privacy. This generation will carry on the mission that turned a storage garage into a living history hall. It was a mission that began with interest, was made possible by knowledge, and was kept going by care. Back at the TV museum, the show stays fresh with pieces that change all the time. One month is all about Carson's horology workshop, or watch parts are hung above his workbench like stars. People can learn about escape mechanisms and why Carson found comfort in counting the seconds until he was far away from breaking news and star interviews by turning dials on interactive displays. Another month is devoted to his philanthropic awards, which show how kind he was. Plaques from children's hospitals and cancer research groups are put up next to a personal artifact from the vault. These structural changes make sure that Johnny Carson's complicated story keeps playing out in new ways, encouraging people to come back and stay involved. The website that you can interact with also changes over time. Now there are user-generated graphs that show important dates in Carson's life along with historical events. There are heated arguments on an online forum about which vault find changed our view of Carson the most. Was it the uncensored talks with astronauts, the Mercury glove, or maybe the touching letters from people who wanted to be actors? Each conversation helps everyone understand each other better, building community among late-night fans, researchers, and candlelit preservationists. Carson's legacy lives on in that virtual place, a living tapestry that he woven himself in the hands of those who love his work. Since people are still interested, network officials are thinking about licensing restored outtakes for anniversary specials. Imagine a 30-minute tribute that mixed behind-the-scenes video with Carson's own commentary from the diaries. His thoughts would be just as moving as any speech. A special like this could show Carson's human side to younger viewers, bringing people of all ages together through laughter and sensitivity. The talk even brings up the idea of an audio memoir made up of diary entries read by Carson himself over tapes that have been kept. These ideas show how one secret garage can lead to a lot of different versions of an iconic figure's story, with each version showing new parts of his life. Claire walks through the gallery one last time, touching the cases that hold Carson's secrets, just before the lights go out on the last night of the show. She stops in front of the oak table where his personal thoughts used to be spread. She looks at the blank surface with eyes that look like they could still see his sketches and writings. Carson's laughs, thoughtful sighs, and unwavering dedication to craft make her feel like he is there during that quiet conversation. Before she leaves, she shuts the gallery doors. She knows that the things she found in Johnny Carson's secret garage have changed not only how we remember him, but also how we honor the common humanity that lies behind all legends.